What is climate change? The climate of an area is its weather average over time, usually many years. Most of the time, this varies for every season, as in the summer the climate may tend to be warmer and sunny than in the winter when it's colder and snowy. The climate of a city or other area changes very gradually. These changes often take place over the course of tens, hundreds, or even thousands of years. Climate change could affect how hot a certain area is or how often rain falls.
What causes climate change? A few causes of climate change are completely natural, such as Earth's change in orbit or the change in oceans and volcanic eruptions. The amount of energy sent from the sun could also change climate. However, most scientists say that current climate changes are caused by humans. They say that it is due to all the fossil fuels that we've been burning to get our energy, such as coal, oil, and gas, and that we've been putting carbon dioxide into our atmosphere. This is what is causing the current warming we all fear. Carbon dioxide is a long-lasting greenhouse gas, meaning that when it enters our atmosphere, it acts like a greenhouse does, keeping in most of the heat that it takes in. This means that the heat that would usually bounce out of our planet's grasp is now stuck in our atmosphere, causing a long-term increase in heat. This is what is leading to a worldwide change in climate.
Comprehending the impact of climate change. Weather and climate may have undeviating impacts on human health. For example, in colder weather, hypothermia may be a risk factor, in contrast to hotter days, where heat stress may pose a threat and cause injuries or even mortality due to severe weather conditions. Climate may also have deviating impacts on human health. For example, after intense rainfall, water contamination may be present, cardiorespiratory issues from excess smog, and increasing risks of foodborne and vector-borne diseases during a warmer climate. Climate change is a constant enemy of human health and will consistently pose a challenge in the near future. Deviating and undeviating health impacts can and will be agitated by a changing climate. Due to Canada's relatively large landmass, as Canadians we should expect an extensive range of impact that will differ from region to region. The largest cities in Canada have been forecasted to encounter a notable rise in days of smog and an increased duration of heat waves, resulting in an increase of heat-related illnesses and deaths. The scope of climate change's effect is a variable that depends on the rate at which our climate changes, and how sufficiently we adapt to the new environment and its conditions and risks to our health and well-being. How does climate change affect Canadian health? Several categories of climate-related impacts have been identified by Health Canada. They have unveiled the potential effects these several categories may have on human life as we know and love. Morbidity and mortality related to temperature. Exceptional cold and heat events may lead to illnesses regarding the respiratory and cardiovascular system, and may increase occupational health risks. Heat can cause heat strokes, heat syncope, and heat cramps that can exacerbate pre-existing conditions such as cardiovascular and respiratory diseases, and pollen and allergen levels that provoke asthma attacks. Natural hazards related to health. Extreme weather and natural hazards may cause a range of deviating and undeviating health effects and increase our chances of being prone to injuries and illnesses, social and mental stress, damage public health infrastructure, increase occupational health hazards, cause population displacement, mental disorders, and infectious diseases. Climate change may elevate various fundamentals including the frequency, schedule, potency, and perpetuation of severe weather events ranging from storms, floods, hurricanes, wildfires, and droughts, all of which are red flags for human health and may be magnified by climate change. Quality of air. Poor quality of air already presents itself as a consequential public health problem in Canada and will become an even greater burden as our climate continues to change. Climate change may increase vulnerability to exterior and interior air pollutants and allergens that may be the reactants and cause allergies, respiratory diseases, heart attacks, strokes, and a variety of cardiovascular diseases, and even cancer. Exposure to ultraviolet rays. Climate change may increase our saturation of ultraviolet rays, resulting in skin damage, skin cancer, cataracts, and disturb our immune system and its function. Vector-borne and zoonotic diseases, food-borne and water contamination. Climate change may pose a change in pattern of diseases and lengthen the transmission period of certain vector-borne diseases, caused by bacteria, viruses, and other pathogens transmitted through mosquitoes, ticks, and animals, expanding their geographical radius. Changes in precipitation and temperature may result in intestinal disorders, malfunctions, and illnesses caused by chemical and biological contaminants present in our everyday water and food, increasing the quantity of waterborne and foodborne diseases. In Canada, it has been exhibited that there is a present increase in risk of waterborne outbreaks with elevated levels of precipitation. Climate change may potentially increase the prevalence and potency of both waterborne diseases such as E. coli and vector-borne diseases such as Lyme disease and West Nile virus. Lyme disease is an inflammatory infection that is transmitted to humans through tick bites. Lyme disease is a borreliosis caused by bacteria known as Borrelia burgdorferi. Ticks bite infected animals and then they pass it on to other animals, including human hosts. There are two types of ticks that have the capability to spread Lyme disease in Canada. Type 1 is the black-legged tick, or the deer tick, or Ixodes scapularis, present in southeastern and south-central regions of Canada. The second type is the western black-legged tick, or Ixodes pacificus, present in British Columbia. Symptoms. Early signs from 3 to 30 days after the bite are similar to mild flu-like symptoms, which include rashes, in certain cases shaped like a bullseye, erythema migraines or EM rashes, fever, chills, headaches, fatigue, muscle and joint aches, and swollen lymph nodes. If left untreated, appalling symptoms over the duration of months to years include appalling headaches, supplementary EM skin rashes, facial paralysis or Bell's palsy, spasmodic muscle, joint, tendon, and bone aches, heart disorders such as heart palpitations and abnormal heartbeat, known as Lyme carditis, neurological disorders such as dizziness, mental confusion or inability to think clearly, memory loss, inflammation of the brain and spinal cord, nerve pain, numbness or tingling in the hands or feet, and arthritis with appalling joint pain and swelling, distinctly in the knees and less commonly in other joints such as the ankles, elbows, and wrists. In a handful of scenarios, Lyme disease may lead to death due to complications linked to infection of the heart. West Nile virus. Many people believe that West Nile virus is a mosquito-borne disease. However, West Nile virus usually unfurls through a mosquito that is fed on an infected bird. A bite from an infected mosquito can lead to infection alongside West Nile virus. Infected mosquitoes may spread said virus to animals, including humans. Symptoms of West Nile virus may be so subtle that the host won't even realize that they have West Nile virus until lethal disorders steer toward encephalitis or meningitis. Encephalitis is the inflammation of the encephalon. Meningitis is the inflammation of the meninges. The meninges are three membranes that sleeve the encephalon and spinal cord. Meningitis transpires when the fluid encompassing the meninges becomes infected. Symptoms may span from mild to severe. Most people, or 70 to 80% that have West Nile virus present, experience little to no symptoms. Mild symptoms include fever, headache, body aches, mild rashes, and swollen lymph glands. Primary symptoms usually flourish within 2 to 15 days after being infected. Anyone infected with West Nile virus can be at risk of manifesting more severe symptoms and health effects. Adults ages 50 or older and those with additional conditions or hindered immune systems have a greater susceptibility to West Nile virus. Less than 1% of infected people develop health effects regarding the central nervous system and its tissue in the brain and spinal cord. Severe symptoms include rapid departure of severe headaches, high fever, stiff neck, nausea or vomiting and sometimes both, trouble swallowing, drowsiness, confusion, loss of consciousness, lack of coordination, muscle frailty, and paralysis. Mild symptoms of West Nile virus can take a duration of a week, while severe instances could experience durations lasting months to years. Worst of all, certain manifestations of said disease may be fatal.
Where in Canada is climate change affecting? Areas all around Canada are currently fighting against climate change, living in its conditions, and facing its impact on life. Atlantic Canada. Atlantic Canada is one of the locales in Canada most compromised by worldwide climate change. The area will face more storm events, higher storm intensity, elevating sea level, storm surges, coastal erosion, and mass flooding due to the rising temperature across the globe. In addition, communities along the coast, which make up the great part of the populace in Atlantic Canada, are the most in danger against these effects. These environmental changes will have highly unfavorable consequences for the fundamental framework and ventures which add to the financial prosperity of Atlantic communities, mostly in the fisheries and tourism industries. Central Canada. The social, economic, and cultural health of Central Canada is heavily determined by our worldwide climate. The consequences of a hotter world climate could have terrible effects on heat related sicknesses and illnesses in the heavily compacted areas of Quebec and Ontario. The well-being of the residents of the two previously mentioned areas, Quebec and Ontario, has and will proceed to worsen as the climate continues to rise, making the risk of sickness and even possible death due to this rising climate a higher threat than before, as smog and ecological changes heighten the dispersion of vector-borne diseases. The prairies. The prairies is one of Canada's most valued areas in terms of its industries. The prairies is one of the biggest producers of agriculture for Canada. It also may just be the most at risk for climate change. The changing climate could lead to changes in precipitation patterns which would be catastrophic to Canada's most valued agricultural area. Trends as of late, as well as future estimations, show that there may likely be less summer stream flows, falling lake leaves, withdrawing glaciers, and increasing soil and water deficiencies. A pattern of increased extreme dryness will probably become a reality throughout a higher frequency of dry years. With that, abnormal precipitation patterns could very well also lead to extreme flooding, as seen recently in Manitoba. Following, the production of agricultural goods, in addition to the surplus of farm income, could be in danger of these intense weather events, and the heightening existence of agricultural pests and diseases. Notably, given the more abundant use of water for agriculture and livestock farming, this fluctuation in rainfall could be tragic to some of Alberta, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan's most vital industries. Western Canada. The western area of Canada are highly at risk due to climate change. There's been a frightening rise in the number of forest fires, storm surges, coastal erosions, landslides, snowstorms, hail, droughts, and floods that could all have disastrous effects on the crucial infrastructure of British Columbia and Alberta. The northern migration of the mountain pine beetle and record-setting numbers of forest fires have already begun to take place, and these have massive effects on the forestry and tourism industries. These events will certainly continue to become reality. Continuously, the efficiencies of Canada's westernmost fisheries, British Columbia's most socially, economically, and culturally most important industry, is anticipated to be dramatically affected by an elevation in sea level, increased freshwater temperatures, and a differentiation in the amount, timing, and temperature of river flows. Northern Canada. Alterations in the climate are already having enormous effects on ecological, economic, and human systems in the north. Present-day levels of contact to climate changes make some northmost systems and populace particularly endangered to the impacts of climate change. Majority of the structure in northern areas are reliant on the cryosphere to, for instance, give continuous sturdy surface for buildings and pipelines. With the climate heating, the cryosphere may soon to be cryogenic. This may lead to collapse of buildings and destruction of pipelines, causing catastrophic events to proceed.
How can you help combat climate change? Professionals say that you can help fight climate change in many simple ways. For instance, you can turn off the light when they are not required, you can shut off the water while brushing your teeth, and take shorter showers. These are all methods of reducing the amount of energy you are using, and in turn mean that less energy is required worldwide, which would reduce the amount of fuel we have to burn to get the energy, which would reduce the amount of carbon dioxide we put into the air. You could also plant a tree to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in the air. Trees breathe in the carbon dioxide that we produce, meaning that if we plant more trees, we could slowly but surely eliminate some of the carbon dioxide in the air, which would help prevent the Earth's climate from changing at the drastic rate that it is.